Great. Well, thank you, Jill. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I'm excited, and what a great group we've got together. I'm Vince Hahn. I'm going to dive right in because this is going to be moving along pretty quick. There's a lot of material I'd like to cover, and I think there's a lot of exciting things to either turn on some light bulbs or answer questions, talk about concerns with artificial intelligence, maybe peer into the future a little bit as well. I want to start with a story just as a little bit of an icebreaker. So when I was just turning 10 years old, my family was living in Melbourne, Australia, and we moved back to the United States to South Dakota. Raise your hand if you've ever been to South Dakota. uh, not a lot of people are from South Dakota, but hopefully some of you have been there. So it was a quite a drastic change. And the way that the school year works in Australia is January to December. And the way that the school year works here in the United States, of course, is fall to the spring. So when I ended up coming here, I was ahead in math. This was a few years ago, back in 1980. And when I arrived to my school, I was ahead in math, and so they were wondering what to do with me back then. So the school purchased, my elementary school purchased a computer. It was their very first computer, and they gave me a manual to learn how to teach myself how to program in BASIC. Can you also raise your hand in the chat if you've ever coded in BASIC? It's not very hard because it is BASIC after all. But hey, I was 10 years old, and this was brand new. And, as a young child trying to get accustomed to a new school environment, I had a funny Australian accent. Um, Being cast into the hallway with a computer for my math class did not do much for my social status, I'll tell you that. It was already struggling to start with. And so they said, hey, go to it. This is your math time. And so my intuition, being a young 10-year-old, the first time with hands on a computer, was to make a chatbot. Now, I didn't call it a chatbot. I didn't know what a chatbot was. But my first thought was, if I made a game, maybe that would improve my social status. Maybe that would help me make some friends. And so I made a game using BASIC, and the game went something like this. So one by one, after I was done programming it in BASIC, students would come out to play my game one at a time because it was just one computer. And the presentation said, the kiosk or the screen said, "What is your name?" And they would type their name and hit enter or return. And I had some 10-year-old snarky response like, "Oh, what a lame name," comma, and then printed their name. And then it proceeded to give them a simple arithmetic questions that they would need to fill out and try to complete. And I just find it really interesting that as a 10-year-old, my first time on a computer, my first instinct was to create a conversation. And chatbots are actually, they started out in the 1960s at MIT with Dr. Joseph Weizenbaum. Maybe some of you have heard of ELIZA, a psychotherapist use case that this MIT professor wanted to try to make with 1960s technology. And it's just really fascinating that when we think about computers, whether in the present or in the future, there's something compelling about them as human beings to try to make them human-like. So it has always fascinated me, and that's a little bit about my history. Now, I will say that if you don't hear an Australian accent from me, it's because my sisters and I worked so hard to get rid of it because we got teased so much at school. So it took a full year. So when I go back and look at home videos, the accent by a year was completely gone. We did this a little bit with the opening slide as some of you were coming in. So I'm just going to accelerate through this piece. But aside from work, can you put in the chat what ways you use an LLM or a large language model? This is like ChatGPT or Bing or Bard. What ways have you used it in your personal life? And while people take some time typing, I'd love to see, I've got the chat open to see what you're saying about it. So while you do that, I won't go and show you my history, my chat history, because I've used it a lot in my personal life, from very personal questions to helping me learn a concept, help me prepare for like maybe a tricky situation I'm going to be facing. I've used it to generate gift ideas. I've used it to write poems for birthdays for people in my life. Um, so I've used it for recipes or food suggestions. Um, let's see. So volunteering, planning events. That's great. Putting an itinerary together for a trip. That's really great. Rewording an email. Thank you. Oh, pronunciation. That's really great. Thanks. Keep putting him in there, because as you put that in there, I think a lot of people, as they read these ideas, will say, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that," and perhaps they'll try doing that. If we have time at the end, I have a slide about when you would use search versus an LLM, and I think that's also a really interesting thing I think about all the time when I'm stuck and I want some help. Instinctively, when do I want to use an LLM and when do I still want to go use a search engine? So, okay, we're going to jump into the workshop now. You'll notice I'm not going full screen because I'm going to be jumping back and forth between tabs. It's just going to be a lot easier to do it this way. So hopefully you can see my screen okay, and then we'll just dive in. So there's four sections I want to cover today. First, I want to talk about a bunch of specialty apps, which it's really companies that have built a shell around a use case to take advantage of an AI engine, in most cases, a large language model. So we're going to go through a bunch of those. Some of these I noticed through the beginning chat when people were sharing what they were doing. You'll be familiar with some. So I'll try to go through these quickly. Yeah, so we'll go through a bunch of specialty apps. And then it's funny when I labeled the second section classic GPT, because GPT is still pretty new, but we're actually going to do some workshopping on some prompting. So hopefully enough of you will participate in that. We'll learn from each other. Then we'll kind of peer into the future a little bit with section 3. And at the last piece, I want to talk a little bit about how to negotiate around the risks of AI within our organizations. So those are the 4 things we'll tackle. So let's dive into specialty apps. So the first I want to jump into is Learning Studio. This particular AI, and there's a bunch of these. I've just chosen a few. This one is, I don't know if they've got a free, but they've got like a 39, 69, 149 month package. For each of these, I'll try to mention how much they cost, just so you get a sense of what they're like. And for this Learning Studio, what I did, I'm a runner. I love to run everything from road marathons to 100-milers. Running is a big part of my life. And so what I did with Learning Studio is I gave it a prompt to create a course on how to train for a marathon. And all I did was tell it, I want a course on how to train for a marathon. And it just took a minute, and that's what it generated here. So you can see it generated a plan, nutrition, endurance, practice, warm up with a quiz at the end. We'll just scroll through this. We'll do this quickly. And so there's content. And I really love running. So I read books, I listen to running podcasts, I train with a group. And so I would consider myself fairly knowledgeable about running and how to prepare for races. And I would say this course it's really good content. So I'll just kind of scroll through this. You can see some of that. And at the very end, there is a quiz that it generated. Yeah, so practical exercises here. Let's see if we can see. Oh, here's the quiz down here. Yeah. So, yeah. So this, would I use this in a formal setting? You know, I would probably have to edit it and dive in and just really fine tune it. But in terms of jumpstarting my experience, it did a fantastic job. Okay. So the next one I wanted to show you was Gamma. Gamma. This one's, I think, $15 a month. And I find myself, I've found myself using Gamma more than I thought I would. So again, to stick with the theme, I created a marathon training course just to compare it to see what with the previous one. Very similar content. And you can go in and you can edit the look and feel and edit the content again. But I also have used it to create like job aids. So here I created a job aid. So I've thought of a fictitious company. I've been working on a demo for like what would a chatbot look like for a a fast food restaurant chain. So I said, you know what, I want a new team leader job aid. I gave it a prompt and it made this job aid for me. Let's see what else I made with Gamma. I wanted to make a menu for my fictitious restaurant, the Heartland Diner, and put in in this prompt, I just actually gave it my menu. I used ChatGPT to create a menu, and then I copy and pasted my menu in here. And I said, hey, I want to have a nice web page menu, and it's created that. You can see here, I would need to do some work to, beef it up, but it was a great start. So that gives you some ideas of what Gamma can do. If I click on here, you can see I can generate either a presentation, a document, or a web page, and this is where you'd put in the prompt. So that is what Gamma looks like. Then there's a handful of services where you can create an image, and this is an image I created using DALL-E, which is ChatGPT's image creator. And the prompt I put in was a runner finishing a marathon in victory in watercolor style. I thought that did pretty well. In fact, I wanted to show you, scoot my screen over here. So this is what DALL-E looks like. And I've played around with different prompts, and some are better than others. So for example, here, this prompt I said, show me a picture of Vince Hahn from Mobile Coach presenting at a conference. Now look at, I know that I'm not very handsome, but I mean, that doesn't even look human. So, it's not going to be perfect. So I know that we're all as a webinar, so I'm just assuming that my dad jokes are getting chuckles from the group. And so I'll chuckle on behalf of everybody. So you can see not everything's like perfect. You can see some of the copy on the images is kind of gibberish. I'll show you a couple others. This one is a road marathon course. And if you look carefully, some of the legs are skewed, so it's not perfect, but I was pretty pleased with the image that I created for this screen here. A runner finishing marathon in victory. Now, also keep in mind that this is the worst it's ever going to be. Things are going to get much, much better, and there's some really impressive things coming out. So, but this is a very quick snapshot on what's available there. Many of us, I noticed in the chat, many of you are using AI for translations. Of course, there's translations are, I would say, old school AI. They've been around a long time, so it's actually fairly older technology. And so I'm choosing Google here, but really there's translations AI services embedded in almost any major business application. So what I wanted to show you here is that there's I'm going to just, since I think most of you are familiar with Google Translate, I'm going to skip over to this next one, which is 11 Labs. And 11 Labs, where am I here? Zoom controls. So what I did with Google Translate, I put in a description for into Korean. I also speak Korean. And let me actually show you the prompt. Let's see, I think it's back here. Yeah, so here you can see this is the English. This course will guide you through the process of training for a marathon. So I put that into Google Translate. Now, since I speak Korean, the translation was actually spot on. So it's not always spot on, but it was pretty spot on. And so then I copy and pasted that into 11 Labs. And you can choose a voice here. So this is text to voice AI. And so let me see. Did I choose what I shared? Let me just make sure. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and share it again. There we go.
훈련 과정을 안내합니다. 초보자이건 숙련된 주자이건 상관없이 성과를 향상하고
So hopefully you heard that. For me, that was incredibly loud. So if it was loud for you and you have headphones on, I apologize. But hopefully you heard that. But it did a spot on job. Like that Korean is perfect. So I thought that 11 Labs is really interesting. I also noticed this morning as I was playing around with this, 11 Labs now has a multilingual feature. So conceivably, I didn't have a chance to play around with it, but conceivably I could even skip the Google Translate step now. So that is how 11 Labs works. And what's interesting with 11 Labs too is you can give it like a 1-minute file of your own voice, and then it will synthesize your own voice, and then you can copy and paste text, and then you can have a audio file of yourself saying what you've typed. And so that could save quite a bit of time if you're doing any voiceover stuff. Okay, so then the next one is Synthesia, and many of you will have heard of Synthesia. This is videos. And so let me go into this one. So here, this reminds me, this would be oversimplified, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of like PowerPoint, where I can create slides, but then it's authoring, so I can create assets and put in overlays, and then put in my script, and then choose my avatar. And so let's click on this and see how it does.
This course will guide you through the process of training for a marathon, from setting goals to completing the race. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced runner, you'll learn the strategies and techniques to improve your performance and reach your full potential.
Yeah, so that's that same paragraph that I used. And what I didn't do, but I could do, is I could put in gestures for the avatar, so it could be moving its hands, and I could really spend some time and make it much more interactive. Just today, I just wanted to introduce some of these tools and show you what their main purpose is. There's another company, another service that's very similar, called HeyGen. This is a video sent to me by one of my customers who used, so this is him, Patrick, and he used HeyGen to create a video of himself, but then put in some Japanese. He doesn't speak Japanese. So let's see how this works.
変化の風が人工知能 AI のますます強まるハリケーンによって専門的な風景を吹き抜けています。この乱が仕事を奪うと恐れる人もいますが、現実はもっと微妙です。
So we'll pause it right there, but you can see what this service is doing. It's actually took a video. Of course, he was speaking in English. He put in the Japanese version, and the AI would manipulated his mouth, so it looks like he was using actually speaking Japanese. Now, this could be really cool. It also can be a little frightening, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But hopefully that gives you a sense of so it's image creation, it's audio creation, it's video creation, and this is just the start. It's course creation. There's all these things that generative AI can do today, and hopefully you can see applications both personally as well as professionally to help ourselves in our lives. So with that, I'm going to we're going to go into this next section of classic prompts. Now, I'm not doing a great job of looking at if you've got any questions for me, but at the end, if you've got questions, I'll try to look at that, and I can also stay a few minutes later to take any questions. Okay, classic GPT. This is old school stuff, about 18 months old already. But I think it's really important to have some experience and learn from each other in terms of what we're doing. So here's what we're going to do. This is going to be an interactive portion of the workshop today. What we're going to do, and this is very simple, and so hopefully you'll get something out of this, but this is a very simple prompt here in the yellow. Let's just look at this. This is an idea for what prompt I would enter into, for example, ChatGPT or Bard or Bing or whatever LLM that you use. So this says, I'm working on a course about effective time management in the digital age. I've already developed 2 ideas for modules, understanding time management fundamentals and prioritizing tasks strategically. What other modules should I include in this course? This is very simple. So if I sort of dissect this prompt, I've provided some basic information, basic context. I've included a little bit more context, so ideas that I've already generated. And now I want some help, the very specific request for some help. So what I'd like you to do is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the chat. See how I do with multitasking, copy and pasting. So now there's a link in the chat, and I'll go back to this slide too. But what you'll see is this little chat bot and I want you to come up with a prompt for an idea for a course creation. You can follow this model here if you'd like. Basic information, make a specific request, or you could just come up with something on your own. And keep in mind that so what this chatbot's going to do is actually going to post your prompt into a web page that I'm going to show. So what you're typing, we will see. So don't do anything that you wouldn't want others to see. So give that a try. So if that's not clear, again, I'll go through the instructions one more time. When you click on the link, you should see this chatbot appear, and then you're going to paste or write a prompt in one message. And this is a prompt to that you would write to generate ideas for a course. And once you do that, we're going to share what everyone's done. We won't have time to share what everyone's done, but we'll just look enough just to get some ideas from one another. So I'll just show you an example. Some of you are completed, some of you are very fast. So if you look at my screen, you can continue to work on your prompt. A lot of these prompts are very simple, which is great. I'm working on a course about basics about photography. And so it looks like in this case, ChatGPT wanted a little bit more information. Yeah, so keep trying that. And we will see what people are putting in there. And if, again, it would be nice if you made your prompt specific to generating ideas for a course, since we're all learning professionals here. That would be helpful. So we'll give everybody just another minute to work on your prompt. I will try not to fill up this time. I'll keep an eye on my clock, and we'll just go for another minute. And I'll show on my screen, if you're deciding not to participate, which is totally fine. You can look on my screen to see what people have done. So here's Kate's submission. There's a course about empathy versus sympathy for customer service reps. That's great. If you're interested in what people are saying, I'll also put the link to this form in the chat. So as we navigate away from it, if you're interested to see what people have done, you can access that later and see what people have written. I'm creating a course for people in my company that are moving from being individual contributors to managing people. Yeah, I think this is great. So I think what ChatGPT, this is, by the way, this particular chatbot's being powered by ChatGPT. We could have used any LLM that has an API. But what I find it most important is just it helps me be thorough, right? It helps me make sure I'm covering all my bases. New hires or diverse organizations. These are great. Way to go, people. Yeah, okay. Tell me how to win at fantasy football. Okay, all right. Great. This is wonderful. Good job. So let's go to the next one. This next one, you don't have to use the chatbot. I just wanted that first one just to get people. This next one, you don't have to use the chatbot I gave you to show off what you've done. But let's do another one where let's use an LLM for a scenario generator for skill practice. And I'm going to actually do this with you, and so you can see what I'm doing here. But in this particular, in fact, let me bring over my example that I teed up earlier. Okay, so here's the prompt that I put into ChatGPT 4. Help me practice my negotiation skills. Role play as my manager as I am for a promotion, raise, new work schedule. But you can see that I didn't write this very carefully. There's some English problems in here. It still understood what I was saying, though. Your role, meaning ChatGPT, your role is to be reluctant to give me what I want. At the end, provide me some suggestions and feedback about how to improve my negotiation skills. So ChatGPT said, sure, I can play the role of your manager. Let's start the negotiation. So hello, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today. What can I do for you? So I'm going to put in, thank, oh, sorry, thank you too. I would like to ask for a raise. I've been overperforming, as you know, and definitely feel like I deserve it. All right, so let's see what my manager says. All right, I understand where you're coming from. I appreciate your hard work and dedication. However, as you know, the company is currently facing some budget constraints. We need to be cautious with our expenses, including salary adjustments. Can you provide me with some specific examples of your overperformance that you believe warrant a raise? All right, so now I want to be clear here. I'm going to practice this to try to make a point. So I'm going to take some offense here and be a little passive aggressive, and let's see what ChatGPT says. Okay, so I'm going to say, well, as my manager, you very well know the details of my performance. I'm a little taken aback that you even have to ask. All right, let's see what it does. All right, I apologize if my request came across the wrong way. I'm fully aware of your contributions, but it'd be helpful for our discussion to have some concrete examples that we can refer to. This will be beneficial when I present your case to upper management for their consideration. Okay, so hopefully you can see. Let's kind of wrap it up and then see what type of feedback it gives me. Well, there is the project from last quarter where I saved the department $100,000, as well as saved 2 clients from leaving to a competitor. How about that? This is kind of fun. I can just like sort of make up scenarios. So you can, I won't read this for you because you can read it. No, that is it. And I'm wanting to get to the feedback part. And we'll see what it says to coach me along. Okay, so now it's giving me some feedback. So it's smart enough to sort of know that the scenario is over, and it's going to give me some coaching on my style of negotiation. So we won't take the time to read all of this. I just wanted to show you that this type of thing can be a really useful use case for an LLM. And you can find that if you can give it more information, so let's say that you want to actually create a module that others can use in your organization, you can, the prompts that we've been using today, like the ones, even the prompts that all of you put together are very short, but you can make prompts that are pages long. And so you can give it a lot of information to have it speak your language, like the vernacular of your organization. If you've got like negotiation best practices within your organization that you want everyone to adhere to, you could give it those instructions. You can give it very specific scenarios in your company. Like you notice that what ChatGPT was very vague and abstract, but if I told it, you know, that we're a software company and this is my job, and the more specific you tell it, the more specific it can be. So hopefully you can see that with that type of prompt engineering, these scenario generators, I think, can be extremely helpful. The last thing I'll say about the scenario generators is that in the work I've do, so I've been working with chatbots for about 11 years, and you know, there are times where people are more comfortable interacting with a computer than with a human. There are, of course, times where humans are just going to be better, but this is one area where a lot of people feel more comfortable with the anonymity of speaking with and practicing with a computer. And that's because it feels safe, because maybe I'm not so confident with my skills. I really want a safe place to practice and mess up and try again without any human sort of watching me. Maybe there's certain topics that are very sensitive, and I don't want to let others humans know that I'm thinking about, you know, a certain problem or a certain issue. So this is one case where that anonymity and the safety of talking to a computer you can really lean into, and you can really lean into for what purpose? For the purpose of helping your people progress. because if they're hesitant to practice and hesitant because they're intimidated or feel vulnerable, then they're really not going to have a chance to improve. So just a couple other examples for classic prompts. I showed you an example in Gamma of creating a job aid, and those again were very simple prompts, but you can use LLMs to create job aids, and the more specific you can give it. So for example, you can copy and paste tickets from your customer service ticket system, give it to ChatGPT and say, create a job aid based on these, the customer issue and the resolution, so that future customer service reps can have a job aid to follow to resolve this type of issue. It really it can be a wonderful resource for job aids like that. And then let me show you one more here. So promotional copy. I saw someone maybe posted this as an idea early on today in the chat, but creating promotional copy to promote your course. If you're finding ways to encourage people to use courses that you've created, that's another really great prompt idea. Okay, so we're going to move on. So we're now going to peer into the future a little bit. And go into what's well, let's just tackle it. So I'm going to show you this video. Maybe some of you have seen this video before. I want to be very upfront to say this is a demo of Google's Gemini multimodal. And after they released this a few months ago, and there was people were wowed by it, they did come out and admit that some of it is doctored. So I want to be very clear. Some of what you'll see here is doctored, but I'm still going to show it because even though some of it was doctored, it fundamentally shows what multimodal does. And that they probably didn't have to doctor it that much. And so the technology is like, this is not fake technology. But I do want to say the disclaimer that this was doctored a little bit. With that said, let's watch the first few minutes of this video.
Let's start. All right, testing Gemini. Here we go. Tell me what you see.
I see you placing a piece of paper on the table. I see a squiggly line.
What about now?
The contour lines are smooth and flowing, with no sharp angles or jagged edges. It looks like a bird to me.
What if I add this?
The bird is swimming in the water. It has a long neck and beak. It is a duck.
Yes.
A duck is a type of waterfowl in the family Anatidae. Ducks are closely related to geese and swans. The duck appears to be blue. This is not a common color for ducks. However, there are some breeds of blue ducks. These are typically not as common as other duck breeds. It is more common for ducks to be brown, black, or white.
Are you sure?
What the quack? I was just talking about a blue duck, and now you're holding one. It looks like blue ducks are more common than I thought.
Would this float?
I'm not sure what material it's made of, but it looks like it might be rubber or plastic.
What if I tell you it's making a squeaking sound?
Oh, if it's squeaking, it's definitely going to float.
Nice.
It is a rubber duck. It is made of a material that is less dense than water.
Can you teach me how to say this in a different language? And give me a few options. Ooh, can you explain how to pronounce the Mandarin one? Is it Yazi?
Yazi
is pronounced with a first tone. In Mandarin, there are 4 tones, which are essential to distinguish the meaning of words. The first tone.
Okay, we're gonna pause it here. Let me see. Yeah, we'll pause it here and let's see if I can multitask. And actually, if because I wanted to give you the link, but if you just Google Gemini demo video, you should find it because it's worth watching the whole thing. I'm very curious what you think about it. So if some of you can just type what your thoughts are, that would be great. But if you think about what type of sorry, I'm trying to multitask and get this link for you. But if you think about what type of application this would have in the workplace, oh, thank you, Luke. That's great. Appreciate it. For me, it's like, can AI that's multimodal? So multimodal means it's seeing and it's hearing, and you can interact with it through text. So that's what the multimodal means. But what about a multimodal chatbot that's watching me work? Are there things around safety that it can help me with? Are there things about if I'm a sales rep, could it observe how I'm in a meeting and give me real time or even very useful coaching afterwards? There's a lot of really interesting use cases for this type of technology that's coming, and it's coming very quickly. I noticed someone posted in the chat a little bit earlier about Sora, which is ChatGPT's new video generation tool that it's also has a very similar demos out there that are wowing people. So now take a moment and think about, the LLM experience that we've had. Think about the image creation, the video creation that's possible. Now this multimodal sensory use case. Perhaps when LLMs first came about, you heard people talk about how AI is going to take over many of our jobs. You might be able to start to put those pieces together and see there's a lot of human tasks that AI can do today, and very soon will be able to do very well, and that scope will just expand. And I think it's very important for us to understand those things and figure out, how to best leverage them for our respective workplaces and our respective lives. So this, this multimodal, hopefully, really, if you hadn't seen that before, very impressive, and hopefully it's something to think about. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is jump into custom GPTs. We'll do this very quickly. Let me show you an example of a custom GPT. Custom GPT is really just a way to save clicks, is the way I like to put it. So I created a custom GPT using OpenAI called the Running Pace Advisor. You'll notice everything I'm doing today is about running because I love running. And essentially, I trained a GPT to be a running pace advisor. With a custom GPT, at least the way OpenAI is doing it, you actually have to be a paid GPT or OpenAI customer to access custom GPTs right now and use them. That's sort of beside the point. Later on, very soon, there'll be, just like apps, there'll be GPTs or very niche and specific use cases that will be available to us to be able to help us. So like, for example, I could say I recently ran a workout that is 10 by 1K in 3:45 with 1 minute rest. What would my half marathon pace strategy be? And I'll leave my typo in there. So, it's just giving me, again, I don't have to give it a lot of more context. It just kind of knows what I'm looking for, and the way that I trained it, it's coaching me, giving me the type of information that I want. And so that's an example of a custom GPT. So that is that one that I wanted to show off. Again, I'm cutting all of these short just because of time, so hopefully you don't mind that. Now, this is kind of the multimodal example. This, by the way, is an image I made with ChatGPT where I uploaded a picture of myself and asked it to make me look like a robot. I mean, the human part of this I kind of like, because it makes me look younger. Anyway, so what if AI could see? And what if AI could hear? We can see a little bit of that with that Google example. What if AI could smell? I think that there's some really interesting use cases here where, chemical problems, or, hazardous waste issues, or other things about our environment could be really interesting if AI could smell. What if AI could taste? What if AI could touch? So as you sort of internally answer these questions, it really hopefully turns on a lot of light bulbs about what our future will look like in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. I like to put in this slide just because it really helps us see, with all the sort of existing versions of these tools that I've shown you today, hopes, can paint a picture of what our future could look like. And the future's coming pretty quickly there. So the next, just looking at the time, so the next section I want to talk about is handling risks. So there's a couple sections here that I want to tackle. The first is, I suspect that in your organizations, there have been pockets of people who are really championing AI, sort of these early adopters, people saying, hey, we gotta really get on top of this. We have to, or we're gonna fall behind. People really sort of carrying the flag of AI. I also suspect that there are people in the organization who are saying, let's slow down. There's a lot of risks involved, and a lot of potential exposure to our company. I imagine all of us are in that boat. And so if you feel like there's a use case to implement AI, and maybe some of the things you've seen today that can really help and benefit your organization, benefit the business plan and the strategic plan that you're on, but you're meeting some sort of resistance. I have found, not only with AI, but just from a technological perspective over the years, that it's really important to have a laser focus on creating a business case and a business value. And so this slide is named technical intimidation because some of us, if technology is not our core competency or our core job role, we're all of a sudden finding ourselves in technology-based conversations, and that can feel intimidating if we're not used to it. And so my advice would be, that's okay. I mean, you should spend time and learn how to speak the language and learn the lingo, but don't let the intimidation prevent the business from moving forward. And so having this laser focus on business value will be really important as you have those conversations. And it's important to ask lots of questions. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. And so if you're finding someone that does have IT expertise, and maybe subconsciously or consciously is trying to take advantage of their technical knowledge to dominate a conversation, I think it's very fair to, in a polite, responsible way, ask questions, demand consistent, reasonable answers, and I think it's very fair for them to allow you to catch up and to be able to have that discussion. So hopefully that's just a little encouragement to not shy away from those conversations. Don't feel bashful about your maybe lack of technical expertise of how to. I mean, you don't need to be able to explain how a vectorized LLM works. You can just say, hey, here's a very concrete example of how this is going to help us do our jobs, and we've been asked to do X, Y, and Z for the overall business plan. So some example topics that you might dive into is data security, putting chatbots on Teams, putting chatbots on a web application. Is our content going to be secure? What to do when AI hallucinates? Is there a way to prevent AI from hallucinating? Hallucination is the term for when an AI presents incorrect information, but presents it as correct information. So that's just hopefully a slide to help you. Now, how to help get your organization ready for like implementing a chatbot or something like this. Parenthetically, this is another image I made with DALL-E. So just, you can see it did a pretty good job there. Yeah, but some key questions to put into your plan and the way that you're going to socialize using AI internally. Be ready to answer these questions. How are you going to measure success? What does success look like? So it's not going to be enough to say, hey, this is whiz-bang technology, we should be using it. I think that's not going to be enough. I think you're going to say, hey, our thesis is by using this technology, these are the results that we expect, and that's going to translate into these business benefits, and that's how we're going to define success. A lot of these generative AI, a lot of the value behind these generative AI tools is immediate content generation. And that can get us into this false sense of, oh, we just have to put in a great prompt and then we don't have to think about it because it's going to generate what we're looking for. The work's not done. So you have to think about, okay, what happens in 1 month or 3 months or 6 months from now? what happens if we've created these job aids to help our customer service reps, but then the nature of the job changes or something in the software changes, so we have to update these. So you do need a maintenance plan. Sometimes I talk to people and they think, oh, well, of course we're going to use AI because something that took 100 hours is now going to take 1 hour. It's very rare that that's the case, but still, if something that takes 100 hours now takes 20 or 30 hours, that's still an amazing savings. But my point is, it's very rare it's going to take 1 hour. It's more realistic that you're going to have to spend some time maintaining it, supporting it, learning about it, keeping up to date. So don't forget that in your plan. And then, and also putting in there, asking yourselves the questions, being ready to answer, how are you going to improve the user experience over time? How are you going to get user input? What qualitatively and quantitatively? I think these are really important questions to tackle. So, all right. So the last thing I wanted to share is just a little bit about the work that I'm doing. So I like to help organizations with my company build chatbots and do this safely within their organization. And so I like to use the word guardrails. It would be great. Well, a lot of organizations want to use AI, but they need guardrails. And so what our platform does, we're a chatbot authoring tool. It's a rules engine. So you create these rules to place these guardrails. So you're not going directly into a AI. You're creating a rules buffer to give AI all the regulatory and very specific information that you need it to, that the user sometimes is not going to think to do. So you can ensure that it's doing that. And when the LLM responds with a response, you can actually intercept the response, scrub it to make sure it's saying the right things, and then pass along that information back to the user, capturing all that information in the platform so that you can review it and have audit, an audit trail. If your organization lets people use LLMs for work, that's great. But the way that they're using it, you have no visibility on what they're using, how they're using it, if they're going directly to ChatGPT, and you have no visibility of what ChatGPT is telling them. But our platform allows you to have all that sort of detailed reporting and conversation auditing. So that's just a little bit about the work that I do. And I'm very happy to collaborate with our friends at Frederickson in designing these type of learning experiences. So with that, I would love to, maybe I'll just, this I think is an interesting slide, and I'll park this here and look at questions if people have questions. But this is just an interesting slide to show when you might use search versus an LLM. I just think it's interesting to see this and see if this checks out with how you've been using an LLM as well. So I'll park the presentation on this slide and see if there are questions. Maybe I can ask our fellow hosts here, were there questions that I've missed that I can answer?
Yeah, we do have a couple. There was one early on, I believe from Bree, asking about what are the copyright considerations and things like that when you use an AI image generator?
Yeah, that's
Thoughts on that?
Yep, great question. So it's important to see, so to me, you know how when you upload software or update software, it forces you to read terms and conditions, and most people will just skip it. I think it's a really useful exercise to read the terms and conditions of the LLM that you're using. So either ChatGPT or BART or Bing. And information will be in there about their stance on copyright. Then also your organization needs to develop a policy around copyright. So for example, if I'm taking a copyrighted image and uploading it into an LLM and asking it to create an artifact or like a version of that image, that's going to be different from just asking an LLM just plain text, hey, make me so for example, I asked an LLM in here, make me a nice motivational image with the words "be ready" on it. And so this right here, I have copyright to share this, but I have to read the terms and conditions of what data DALL-E's using to generate images for me to feel 100% comfortable with the copyright of this generated image. So hopefully that just gives you some guidance.
Thanks. And then I have Another question from Dave, saying, how are companies typically collecting and or storing and or using data generated by these tools when they're used in a corporation? And he gets that GPT doesn't store the data,
Yeah.
but is some aggregate data
Yeah.
that can be collected.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so for that, you would need some intermediary platform to be able to capture the data and store it. And that's again something that we do at Mobile Coach, and there are others that can do it. Yeah, because if you're using ChatGPT directly, then there's not a way to do that. Now, I'll say I think this brings up a point that I missed earlier. If you are using ChatGPT directly, and like I was doing, just actually going to ChatGPT and giving it information about your company, their terms and conditions say that that information that you're directly giving to ChatGPT is fair game for them to train their LLM on. So you have to be very careful with that. If you use ChatGPT through their API, which is how I did our little demo bot, because you notice you entered that into a web widget that I created. So we're using an API to pass the information to ChatGPT. Their terms and conditions say that if you use ChatGPT through API, they're not going to keep that. It's very transactional. They'll process the request and then throw it away. So that's a really important security consideration for you as you're thinking about content storage and as well as proprietary information issues.
And do you have any insights into how organizations and corporations are currently using any of that data, or if they are using that data?
I think it's still so early. I think there's a desire to keep and track that data. They don't know what they don't know, but they want the data so they can learn to see how people are interacting with it. So a lot of the work that we do is right now using LLMs is some performance support, right? Like uploading your knowledge base, uploading your job aids, and having a chatbot help people in the moment of need. And so what they're very interested in is, what are people asking? And so are there gaps in our information or in our job aids? Because when we ask them what they need, it's different what they actually are asking. And so that's one. It's still so early. I don't have really any definitive data to share, and that's going to vary from use case to use case. But that's an example of the type of data people are looking for.
Really insightful. Really, really interesting. Any other questions? And Vince did let me know he can stay around for a little while. We are at 1 minute to 1 p.m. here. So I do want to say thank you to Vince for this very informative and insightful presentation today. And thank you to everyone for attending. We hope to see you at, if you're, within driving distance or want to fly in, we hope to see you at the happy hour in March. And with that, so if you need to go ahead. If you have questions and you want to stick around for a few minutes, we can stick around for probably another 5 minutes or so. If you have any questions you want to ask Vince about. Let's give Vince a little round of applause. Yay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much.
I do have a question, but I think it's kind of gotten lost in all the thank yous and goodbyes. But, for somebody who doesn't know very much and wants to get started to learn more, do you have any suggestions for ways to get smarter?
Great question.
Yeah, I would say, so for me, and really nobody knows very much. So we're all in the same boat. But for me, I've started just really leaning on using an LLM like ChatGPT for my personal life, because it's very genuine, and then you learn a lot. So rather than experiment like, oh, what if I could do this? If I'm really using it for where I'm stuck or where I really want some help, so I've got skin in the game. That's been the most helpful for me to understand what this technology can do. And then as I get a little bit more comfortable with prompts and seeing how they help or they don't help, then naturally I started using it more for work. So that's just a pattern that that's worked for me, and I've been encouraging some of my friends who've asked, and that seemed to work for them too. So that's what I would suggest.
Thanks so much, Kim. That was a great question. And thank you, Vince. Any other questions, comments before we officially close?
So I think my dream application of this that I have not figured out yet with the approved software that we have is record a team meeting where you're interviewing a SME for content. Ask Copilot in Teams to create a job aid based on that content, and then use Articulate AI to create an e-learning based on that job aid, which still requires some level of human intervention. But I'm going, if we can use our skills for that consultative skills, we can make huge business difference. So I don't know where we're at with that, but that's my dream.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great use case, and I think you could I think like if like, so for example, it's a Zoom meeting, you can get the transcript
Uh-huh.
and you can copy post the transcript into like even ChatGPT.
Mhm.
And then you can give in that prompt very specific output requests that would be friendly for Articulate AI.
Uh-huh.
I think you could pull that off.
That's my
Mhm.
dream. Not there yet, but like looking at all the tools, I think in the next 5 years, our jobs are going to be fundamentally different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
I might
I
even
agree.
say shorter than in 5
Okay,
years.
shorter than
Yeah.
I'm looking at the speed at which large companies grow
Yeah,
and
that's a good
adopt
point.
technology.
Mhm.
Not necessarily mine, but like as a whole.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you could try that now, Kate, with the Learning Studio AI tool.
Quite likely, yeah. I'd probably do it
Mhm.
outside of our, internal environment, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Or try it, interview
Yeah.
someone about something not work related,
Yeah.
right? As
Yeah.
a test case,
It
right?
sounds like a
You know,
workshop at the Frederickson offices.
We could totally do that. We could absolutely do an AI lab, and
Yeah, there you
and try
go.
out. We can generate some use cases beforehand, collect some,
Yeah.
and then we can try them all together.
Yeah.
I have no idea why that is making my Alexa speak.
Yeah, these are the bugs of AI. Kate, I
They're
also think that
everywhere.
that's a really interesting use case because I think that if you could interview that SME enough, you could actually
Uh-huh.
replace the SME with a virtual SME.
Ooh.
Mhm. Mhm.
That gets dangerous. even.
Yeah.
And then, but if
Yeah.
you can create something draft enough, which we already do, run it by your SME to say, what's accurate, where did I miss the boat? Like there's some cool opportunities here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm building a use case off of your use case idea, Kate, right now in my mind around interviewing multiple learners and then creating personas.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think
All right. I'm sorry.
just
Any
go
other
ahead.
questions before we just continue to ideate here? Other
Fun.
questions or comments? All right. Great.
Yeah,
Well,
just another thank you.
yeah,
This was
go ahead, Kim.
fascinating. No, I was just saying, another thank you. It was really a fascinating session. I really enjoyed it.
So thank you so much, Kim. Thank you, everyone.